Here at 7 o'clock, we love to talk to newsmakers, and we got one of the biggest ones with us tonight. Newly elected LA County District Attorney George Gascon announced sweeping plans for criminal justice reform. He set his new agenda for Los Angeles just moments after being sworn in. This was that moment. Of course, he's taken office at a divisive time, to say the least. He faces a rising crime rate across LA County, and he's already facing opposition to many of his policies from prosecutors and police officers, all of whom he must work with. Gascon's new directives include this: ending the cash bail system, a review of old cases to determine whether lighter sentences should be sought, an end to the practice of trying juveniles as adults. Among other proposed changes, Gascon says he plans to reopen dozens of deadly officer-involved shooting cases dating back as far as 2012. We are now joined live by the newly sworn-in LA County District Attorney George Gascon, and we got to give you credit because the last time you were on before the election, you said that you would come back on and that you like sparring with us, and not everybody keeps their promises, so amen to keeping your promise on this one at least.
Thank you.
And welcome back to the show.
I will be your nightmare because I will want to keep coming back.
Okay, well, we love that.
No nightmare.
We love the conversation, and it's important conversation.
Absolutely.
Congratulations on the win, and I'm sure it feels really good to be sworn in this week, and a lot of news. Let's start with that issue of ending cash bail for certain offenses. This really goes into effect more so January 1st, but what I think might be so confusing for some people is that we just had an election where you won, but there also was a proposition on the issue of cash bail, which California voters said, we don't want to end cash bail. So why is it being ended now? And what do you say to people that said, voters just said, we don't want this?
Yeah, you know, and what happened with Proposition 25, which is the addressing of cash bail issues, it was a very divided issue because you had, on the smaller percent of the people, you had those that support cash bail. And then you had a large number of people that voted against Prop 25 because they did not want to use the algorithms or the artificial intelligence that was part of SB 10, which was the legislation that was being placed on the ballot, because a lot of people feel that a lot of those the use of artificial intelligence and those algorithms has a discriminatory impact because it often deals with information that is based on past criminal record, which is often the result of what we're policing in some communities. So it really, the failure of Prop 25 wasn't so much a vote for cash bail as it was a vote against sometimes the use of algorithms. So very, very split.
So what is that? How's it going to? Oh, go ahead, Dr. Drew.
Go ahead, Alex. I'll let you.
So how is that going to work? I mean, what's this actually mean for people? I get arrested. I'm being held. Do I now no longer have to pay cash bail? Explain it in real simple terms.
No, of course. So, you know, first of all, let's understand that cash bail is still a law in the state, and that a judge can assign cash bail if he or she so chooses to do. However, most of the time, you're going to find that judges are going to go along with whatever the district attorney is requesting. So what we're saying is we, as the prosecutors, are not going to request cash bail on misdemeanors and nonviolent, non-serious felony offenses. And then starting in January, we will look for a preventative detention for those people that we believe that are dangerous and have a hearing on it as opposed to ask for cash bail. Now, clearly the judge can still they can go in a different direction and they can assign cash bail. We will not be asking for. And by the way, the policy has clear exceptions for people that are a public safety risk.
Mr. Gascon, I'm wondering how you're going to judge success or failure of both the removal of cash bail and the lighter sentences. Is there a time frame you're going to look at some criteria and say, hey, things are getting worse or things are getting better? What do we measure? How do we know whether this is a good idea or not?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, with the issue of cash bail, really, it's very simple. We're looking at whether people are coming back at least at the same numbers that they were before, if they're being cited back to come back to court. And certainly in the San Francisco experience, we found that actually people that were released without cash bail, they were coming back at higher rates of people that we provided cash bail for. But, you know, a lot of this is we're going to be monitoring this stuff on a monthly, a quarterly, and certainly a semi-annual and an annual basis. I am a strong believer in using data and using science, and this is all stuff that we're going to be monitoring very closely. There are going to be areas that we're going to have to tweak, other areas that we actually may decide that that's not working at all, and we're going to move in a different direction.
Will the public have access to that data, by the way? Is there somewhere, the
Absolutely.
website we can all go to? Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, here's a caveat to that. So in San Francisco, we created a open dashboard, so we're public. I'm going to have to go at the speed that I can get the county to provide us the IT support for that. But my goal is that all this will be public information that will be, well, it's all public information, by the way, but it will be readily available to anyone, so you'll be able to go on the website. You won't have to do a public records request. You will simply go in and you will see updated information regularly.
You know, there are a lot of people that clearly love what you're doing. That's why you won. But then there are other people that are concerned about what you're doing. My colleague Gina Silva last night spoke to some mothers of murder victims who are concerned about this idea of juveniles not being charged as adults. Here's some of what they had to say.
I was pissed. I was angry. I was hurt. I can go out and kill somebody, and the law is just gonna slap me on the wrist and put me in timeout like I'm 3 years old, and then they're gonna release me back into the streets so I can kill again. That's not fair.
There might be more victims than we already have. Please, our public safety is at risk.
What do you say to them?
Well, I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation, especially the first lady that says, so I'm going to kill them and go back and kill again. First of all, she's an adult. So if she kills, she's going to go to prison for a long time. But if you're under 18, assuming that you are found guilty, you could be in prison until you're 25 years of age, which is the law for juveniles. The basis for this work is that we know that adult brain is not fully developed until we're well into our mid-20s. We also know that when we take a child and we put it into adult system, we are guaranteeing almost a life of criminality. They are coming back out. It really doesn't matter what they go for. Even if you give them 20, 30 years, if you go in at 16, you're coming back in your 30s and your 40s, and your criminogenic factors, meaning the likelihood that you're going to reoffend, is highly increased sometimes when we start that young. So what we're doing is we're trying to provide interventions that are appropriate to the age of the individual. And by the way, a lot of these kids that kill someone, that's usually not their first time at the rodeo. There has not been prior interventions that have been effective. So it's a combination of how do we start with early intervention and how do we do our work to reduce the recidivism that continues to plague our criminal justice system.
Well, this is such an important conversation. Would you stick around for one more segment? Because I think we want to go a little deeper into this. All right, thank you very much. We are back with the new district attorney of Los Angeles County, George Gascon, one of the most progressive district attorneys in the entire country. Monday, his first day on the job of an elected 4-year term. And it comes at an interesting time, a time when we see crime is up. We see homicides are up in Los Angeles recently. And you're drawing some concerns from some of the rank and file who are concerned about your decision to get rid of gang enhancements and other tools that they say that they use to target criminals and make it harder for criminals. Here's what a veteran prosecutor who didn't want to be identified told the LA Times. His policies are a slap in the face to crime victims, both past victims and the ones to come. His blanket policies do not take into account that we are the only people standing between truly dangerous criminals and the general public. And another here, I am already getting concerned emails from concerned victims. What am I supposed to say to them? The Police Protective League also raising concerns. They're a union who backed Jackie Lacey, your opponent, greatly. They say right here, the new DA talks a good game, but his plans will do nothing but further victimize Los Angeles residents. Some strong words there. Your reaction to people that are saying, look, we got a crime problem right now, and this is going to make it harder. This is going to make it easier for criminals at a time when we should be doing the opposite.
Yeah, so here's the problem with all of that, right? LA County has been the most carceral county almost the most carceral county in the state for at least the last 8 years. And violent crime went up by nearly 30% in the last 8 years. And we have had an increase in homicide, and we have been putting people in jail at the rate that they have been doing so for a long time. When you compare that, for instance, in San Francisco, where we had a much lower level of prison commitment, and our violent crime went down, and our population actually went down by 6%. Here, it only went up by 1%. So I think people need to get off their high horse, and they have to, first of all, admit that what they have been doing in the past has not been working, number one. Number two, the reality is that I find it sort of interesting when we keep invoking the victims, when the reality is that survey after survey, national and local, about what victims want, victims are not necessarily looking for a pound of flesh. They're looking for things that make it safer. I find it even more offensive when I hear someone say that we are the only line between, safety for their community and, the breakdown of civilization, and it completely ignores that the communities play a role and that there are many other partners in the space that can provide assistance, and we are not the only line. We are one of a component of social services that can help our community create sustainable models for the safety of everyone. But again, the concern that crime is going up, and somehow we're going to double down on what has failed already, and that somehow we're going to get a different result, I find it a little problematic.
I have a couple questions. One is, you mentioned recidivism before the commercial break, and the young people in recidivism. Is that the job of the DA to address adolescent mental health and criminal recidivism?
Unquestionably, we are supposed to make sure that our interventions are going to work. Look, this is, I used to tell district attorneys when I was swearing them in, I said, I wish if I would give you the medical oath as opposed to the legal oath, because, you're swearing allegiance to the Constitution, all things were wonderful, but you are sometimes doing more harm. As you know this, Dr. Drew, when you got out of medical school, you got your license, part of your oath was to do no harm, right?
Oh, listen, that's what I've been complaining about with the state public health officials. That's our major focus.
Yeah.
So you're right.
Okay. So we need to do the same thing in the legal profession, right? We need to look at what we're doing. And first of all, we have to make sure that we're not doing any more harm than what is already being done.
Let me ask this, though.
We have to look for the right level of intervention.
We're running out of time. So I have one last question, which is, has your point of view, if I were to interview George Gascon when you were an officer on the beat, would you have had a different point of view?
Oh, absolutely. And I openly say that I've evolved tremendously. Even if you were to have interviewed me when I first became district attorney in 2011, and what I'm telling you now, it will be different. I continue to evolve because I think it's an obligation that I have as a professional, as a human being, to learn, to evolve, and to grow.
So lastly, you have made the decision to go very quickly on these reforms, not sort of easing into it. You're doing a lot at one time. What do you say to all the other people that you got to work with, the cops, the other prosecutors, other people in the system that are concerned that you're doing too much too soon, and maybe you should ease into it a bit, and you're losing them potentially in the process? What's your message to them on why to go so aggressive so quickly?
Look, it goes back to the concept of do no harm. Every time that we over-incarcerate in a community, every time that we're holding somebody in custody that shouldn't be held here, every time that we're providing an intervention that is not helping our community, we're doing harm. And the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to basically say we're going to go and do our work, and we're going to try to re-engineer the way that we're doing our work and avoid doing so much harm to our community.
Thank you very much. We could talk to you for hours, but we appreciate you coming on, answering the questions, and best of luck to you. This is such an important job, and we appreciate having the chance to talk with you.
Thank you, and I look forward to a periodic opportunities to come and talk to you guys.
Our new series regular. We love it.
There you go. Maybe in about 60, 90 days, we'll start seeing some numbers. Obviously, nothing definitive because none of this will be fully implemented by then. But certainly 6 months out the line, we should be able to start seeing some meaningful data that we can talk about.
All right. Look forward to it.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Open invitation.
Great. Thank you.